Azure Function Security is a very important concept, and there are different access levels that we should understand how we can secure our Azure Function access. Welcome to TechWeb Dots. So I will discuss today how you can apply the different access levels including admin, anonymous and function, and how to use all the app keys which are required to secure the functions, including testing. We'll discuss step by step. Okay, so let's move ahead. So before jump into the testing session, just understand how these all auth levels are different. So we'll go one by one. So Azure functions provide different access levels for their HTTP triggered function to control access and authentication requirements. And these levels determine how requests to the function endpoints are handled, ranging from public open access to requiring the specific keys or master keys for authorization, because without that we cannot access the Azure function. If you remember, the function that we have used so far in this series, we have used the anonymous access. And anonymous access says it is completely open access to the function endpoint without any authentication or keys requirement. So anyone can make a request to the function endpoint without needing to provide any credential. So if I show you our function, what we have discussed so far in this series, this is our Azure function. This is the same Azure function that we have been using so far in this Azure function with Python for beginner series. So I strongly recommend you to watch the previously recorded videos for better understanding. So as of now, if you see in our function underscore app.py file, we are using the anonymous access. It means it will be publicly available, right? So let me go to the Azure portal. If you see on my Azure portal, if you just click on browse icon, so we will see a new window that will be showing the default root of this application. See the message, hello, welcome to the Python Fast API world, right? So default root is working without specifying any key, right? Simple. We can just click on browse and it will redirect us to the default root. Let me also show you our REST client tool that we will be using in this session for testing the or host keys, right? So I am using httppi. This is our httppi REST client tool, right? I am just performing the get command from here, right? And we are just using the same URL as we used in the browser. And if I hit send, so it will quickly give us the response 200 okay, and the message is exactly same that we can see on the browser. Hello, welcome to the Python API world, right? So now let's go back to the presentation. So we have seen the default anonymous behavior as of now, where there is no restriction at all, right? If we move next to understand the function level access, or we call it the function key. So before the hands-on, let me discuss or give you the information what function key is. The level requires a function specific key, or we also call it function key by default, or a default function key. So don't confuse with this naming convention, because Azure portal shows all these things, but all these are same, right? So when we wanted to access the Azure function, so keys should be included in the request. I will show you in a moment. And each function can have its own unique key, and only requests that include the correct key for that function will be authorized. Okay, and this provides a more granular level of control over the access to a specific function, right? One function we have already deployed over there, right? And each function can have one or more keys associated with the function, and these keys are used to what? Authenticate the request to the specific function endpoint. Okay, so let's go to the Azure portal and see, are we able to see our function key or not at this point of time? This is our Azure portal, and if I click on my function here, right, it's getting loaded. And here in the code editor, we can see what are the files we have uploaded, right? So it says here we are using the anonymous, okay? And if I click on the function key, right? So by default, even it is anonymous, function have its own key, right? But right now, because there is no restriction, we don't require any key. So let me deploy my function with the function level access. So what I need to do for that, same action we will perform, similar one that we have performed in our previous section. So let's go back to the Visual Studio. So here is my Visual Studio code. So instead of using anonymous, I will use function. Okay, now I am setting the access level function. So what do we mean by this? If I want to access my function, I have to provide the function key, and without function key I will not be able to access my Azure function. Okay, now I have made the changes. Next thing, we have to deploy this. So we will use the zip deploy. Okay, but for that I have to make a updated zip, right? So if I right click over here, reveal in file explorer, okay, this is the file that I have just updated. So let me upload this file in back to our zip folder, right? Copy and replace. And if I click on this zip file, if your first time it is watching, so this is our zip file for the zip deploy. It contains 5 important files: init, function py, host.json, main.py, and requirement.txt. Okay, let me go to the PowerShell console to deploy our function as zip. So this is our Windows PowerShell console, and I have already logged into my Azure account, selected my tenant, and selected my subscription already. So that is also important for you when you will be performing zip deploy on your machine. Okay, so if I click here, so if you see this command, we already discussed in the previous session, so I will not repeat again. So what we are doing, simply Azure function deployment, source our config zip, we mentioned the resource group, we mention our function app name, and the path where my zip file exists, right? And we are building it remotely. And if I hit enter, it will take a minute or so to deploy this function, so we can see the updated content on our Azure portal. Okay, so let me pause for a minute. If you see here, we got the success message. The 202 says our function deployed, and this JSON response says everything is completely finished. So we can see here our log URL if you wanted to see the deployment logs. Okay, and this is further URL. See, you can see this SCM, the Kudu tool, right? We already discussed in the previous sessions. So I strongly recommend you to watch that. Okay, so now we have the success message. So let's go to the Azure portal to verify our new deployment. So we are back to the Azure portal. So let's click on my function very first time. Okay, and let me refresh this window. So all changes are correctly reflected here. So we can see everything is here, and if I click on my function, just to verify, we have updated the auth level. So we can see now, previously it was anonymous, now we have the auth level is function. Okay, so what will happen now? If you try to access as you were trying to access previously, if you just click on browse, so the link will open, but you see the page is not working right now. If the problem continues, contact the site owner. And we are actually getting the 401. It means we don't have access, right? And if you try to run the previous URL, so you will get nothing, right? And let me also show you from my client tool. Now onwards, I will use my REST client httpy for the testing. If you see in this REST client, and if I send this request from here, now it will also receive the same 401, which is unauthorized access. Okay, why? Because we have to specify what our function key here. Okay, so where we will get the function key? If I go back to my browser, okay, click on my function. All right, if we click on the tab function key, so we can see our function key here, okay, which is default function key. Okay, so I have to apply this with the request from my REST client. So let me copy this function key from here. Okay, and let's switch to the httpy. Okay, this is the same request, right? So there are multiple ways you can pass the key, right? So I will prefer the auth one here. If I click on auth, I have to provide the header name. Okay, so we have to specify what will be the header name if I wanted to pass the key. So it will be x hyphen functions key. Okay, and in the value part I will just paste the value that I have copied. Okay, so auth level x function key is my header name and this is the value, right? And now I'm going to click on send to see now if it is working or not. If I hit click, yeah, we get the success message, right? Hello, it means our header is working now with this key. You can also pass the same thing with the header instead of auth, and you can also pass it with the help of param. So in the param, what you need to do, you will specify, you will not mention the header name now, x function key. You have to specify the code, and in the value you will just paste the value of your key and you just hit send, right? Because this is not a masked value, so I will not paste here from the security reasons. Okay, that's fine, but we have seen it's working perfectly, correct? Okay, let's go back to the presentation now. So we have seen this how it is working, but remember you can also add your own function key if you want. Can you see here we have an option of adding the new function key, correct? So each function can have one or more function keys and these keys are used to authenticate. So we are good with the function key. We have seen the practical now. Now the next one, the host keys, which is very important, right? And the very first one I will discuss here is the admin, and we also call master, right? So the level requires or it only accept the master key, right, to access the function, which provides the highest level of access to all functions within the function app and the administrative feature. Okay, if you deploy the function with the admin rights, right, then you will apply master key. Okay, and no other key will work along with the master key, right? There are few other details related to this admin master key. What are those? The level is generally used to for performing tasks like managing the function, app, or deploying new functions. You should not share this key with third parties or distribute it in native client application, because in your organization or in your workflow you might be thinking you deploy a function and share the keys with the client. No, this is not the key, right? So the master one, this is the one, not the key. I will show you on the portal where you can see, right? And the another one is the default key, right? So now you must be thinking, what is the difference here? Admin or master key, if you specify this admin level, right? So you have mandatory to supply the master key. And if you supply the default one, so host keys are specific to the entire function app and allow access to all the function endpoints in a function and often used with the function level access. So previously we used the function level access, but we have seen, right, if you wanted to specific function, only allow users to access only the specific function, just share with them only the particular function key. But if you want to allow your users to all the function in your function app, then you have to share this default key. How to deploy multiple function in the same function app, we will discuss in our next session. Okay, okay, let's test this. So let's do the hands-on on this change, right? So let me go back to my Visual Studio. Now this time instead of function I will use the admin access. Okay, I have just saved my file, so let me go to the file explorer again. Okay, my file is updated just now. Let me drop this into the zip file. Same process, file updated. Let me go to my Windows PowerShell. Let me clear screen, perform the same command, hit enter because we haven't changed the path, so it will take a minute. Let me pause for a minute here. Okay, it's completed now. This time it is a bit faster now. So we have seen, we have the log URL, success message we have received. So let's go to the Azure portal and let's verify if our deployment got successful or not. Okay, to verify our deployment successful or not, let's click on a function, refresh this window here. Okay. And if I click on my function, just to verify from the code file, we have the updated auth level or not. So it's loading here. So we can see now this is the expected auth level that we have set, correct? And again, if you go to your function, you will try to browse this function, right? You will not be able to access because now the access level is completely different, correct? So now you must be thinking function keys. We can quickly go to the function and just click on the function key and we can get it. But where you will get the other keys? So on the left hand side section under function, you have the option app keys. The moment you click here, right, you will get your master key, right, which is very important, which that you should not share with anyone. And the second one is a default key that we just discussed. It is for accessing all the functions. Okay, so let me open my REST client and test these one by one. Okay, so very first thing, we can also verify is our previous function keys are working or not, correct? So previous function keys were already there. Let me go to my REST client. So our function keys as is the function one, correct? And if I send here now, it's not working, unauthorized. Why? Because we have changed the access level to what? Admin, right? And admin needs the master key. Even if you come back here, you you try to use this default key, right? Not the master. And I go back to my REST client, and here if I just delete this one, apply a new one, try to use the keys, even the default one is not working because when we set the admin, it only needs what? Our master key. So let me copy the master key, go back to my client, delete all the values from here, from the function, paste here, and if I hit send, it should work, right? See, it's working now. So when the level is set to admin, you have to provide only master key. Okay, so now we have seen the difference, correct? So let's go back to the presentation. So now we know how to use the master key and when to use the default key, right? But still I will explain whenever required. I will repeat. So the very last one, the system keys, right? So what are system keys? You haven't heard about this straightforward because you are not using it or you are not managing it, because the specific extensions might require a system managed key to access webhook endpoints, or it is called internal components, right? Internal component use it for the communication with the function key, right? System keys are automatically managed by the function runtime and provide granular access to the function runtime features. So one example or two example you can read here. The event grid requires that the subscription use a system key when calling the trigger endpoint, or it can be a durable function, durable entities. Please watch my durable function series, okay, if you want to, which is based on the .NET. Okay, durable functions also uses system keys to call durable task extension API. So I think for now you're clear how it works. I mean, you can see the function key. Let me show you in the Azure port. See, if any specific new system keys are assigned, so you will see under the same section, app keys. Okay, so let's go back to the presentation. Now, very few important things remaining here. What are those? If you want to execute a function and your scope is a specific function, then you should use a function key, right? This is the metrics that you should follow when you are giving access, okay, to anyone. If you want to execute a function, any function, right, so you can use the function or host key. You can call an admin endpoint function app master only, right? When it is admin, it is master key type only. You call a durable task extension API function app system, right? the star is mentioned here because it is scope determined by the extension. You are not managing it straightforward. So we understand the each case scenario. Now the last thing, the important one, the security consideration finally, because access keys are, once it is compromised, so you will be in trouble, right? So what other things you can implement from the security point of view? The number one, HTTPS, right? It is highly recommended to enforce HTTPS for secure communication between the client and functions. Second, access keys, we already discussed, right, are good way to protect the function endpoint from unauthorized access, but they don't offer the highest level of security, right? The third one, the RBAC, right? For more robust access control, you should also implement the RBAC, role-based access control, to manage the permissions at a higher level. Okay, so I hope all concept of access keys and the difference is clear now. In my next session, I will discuss how you can deploy multiple function, for example, two functions in a single function app with the zip deploy. Okay, and your one like, one comment, one share, or your support will help us and motivate us to create more such content. Okay, and I will see you in the next video. So your feedback is always important for us. Goodbye, take care.